another reaction. This is the first Crip in history, like the guy that's created.
Raymond Washington was just 16 years old when he created what has now become one of the largest street gangs in the world. Raymond Washington was just 16 years old when he created what has now become one of the largest street gangs in the world.
He creates Crips, like the largest of the gangs, with 17 years old. Like, what? He was so young.
As the founder of the Crips, he planned to create multiple South Central Los Angeles, Watts, and Compton Crip gangs that would be united, protecting their neighborhoods from outside threats. But things would not go as he had planned, and the Crip gangs that Raymond Washington originally started eventually took on a life of their own. Raymond Washington was born on August 14, 19...
The only thing I know, like, they created Crips for protecting their neighborhood because of, like, racist cops, protect like black people cops, racists like skinheads, KKK, but they all turned to drugs and other things. So
53 in Los Angeles, California. He spent most of his life on the east side, growing up with four brothers on 76th Street between Wadsworth and Central Ave. Growing up during the 50s and 60s, he was exposed to many of the issues taking place during that time, including racism, segregation, and the Watts riots, which took place less than a mile from his home. This was also the time of the Black Panthers, an organization formed to bring peace to troubled neighborhoods. The Panthers promoted unity and community.
That's when gang members wasn't like that huge. Black Panther was like to protect their all black, like clothes, all black, protecting the black people.
Community independence in South Central LA, and set up free breakfast programs for kids like Raymond Washington, who was 12 years old at the time. All these influences surrounding Washington at such a young age forced him to grow up fast. He developed a strong personality and started to become known in his neighborhood as a natural and commanding leader. In his teen years, he would often get into fist fights at school. These fights would eventually lead to him being kicked out of many LA area high schools and being sent to a juvenile detention center. Soon, Washington was known on the streets as one of the best fighters on the east side. He rarely drank and didn't do drugs. Instead, he worked out constantly, powerlifting, weightlifting, and boxing every day for hours, quickly developing a reputation as someone who was not to be messed with.
The difference, like, he was dangerous because he knew how to punch people, not shot. Like, if you want problem, get punched, not use a weapon. In those days, like, was different.
First gang Raymond Washington affiliated himself with was the East Side Avenues. However, Washington was much younger than most members of the Avenues gang, and this came to cause problems. An altercation between Washington and the Avenues founder led to a split, and in 1969, at the age of 16, Washington left to start his own gang. The origin of the name Crips has been debated over the years, with some of the original members saying Raymond first called them the Baby Avenue Cribs, Cribs, due to their young age, which then later evolved into the name Crips. Yet others who were there at the beginning say the name Crips came from the nickname Crip, which was given to Washington's older brother because he was bow-legged. Either way, by the time word got out to surrounding areas about Washington's newly formed teenage gang, they were known as the Crips. Washington used military-like tactics to organize the Crips. He held meetings at local parks, set up safe houses in case of attacks, and brought together leaders of neighboring gangs to form unions. He also set a dress code: khakis, suspenders, ace deuce derby hat, leather jacket, earring in the left ear, black glove on the left hand, and a bandana on the left side. As the Crips expanded, Washington would sometimes use a strong-arm approach to gain new members, but he was not quick to use guns or knives and would only fight when necessary. In fact, in the beginning, the Crips were not about violence or criminal activity. Washington had organized the gang, taking from the idea of the Panthers to promote strength in the community and protect the neighborhood from crime and outside threats. He intended for all surrounding area Crip gangs to get along and follow the same code. It wasn't until 1972 that things started to take a turn. Poverty in the neighborhoods of South Central was at a high, and the Crips' activity began to shift to stealing money and clothes to survive. By this time, the East Side Crips had spread to include the West Side Crips and the Compton Crips, and the media started to take notice. The first ever news story covering the Crips was in March of 1972 and involved an incident at a Hollywood concert in which a group of Crips attempting to steal a leather jacket resulted in the death of a 16-year-old. Headlines bearing the Crips' name were all over Los Angeles newspapers, and the sensationalized news coverage labeling the gang as a dangerous group helped membership numbers grow. More and more people wanted to become a part of the Crips, and by 1973, the original Crip gang Washington had started with just a few friends and family had grown to over 100 members. In 1974, at the age of 21, Washington was arrested for robbery and sentenced to 5 years at the Dual Vocational Institution in Tracy, California. He was the first Crip to ever be sentenced there. While Washington was incarcerated, Crip activities on the streets again began to shift as Crip members started acting out against each other.
That's a problem. Like, they started from doing a good thing, but just because they don't have money, you're poor, you starting to steal clothes, other things.
By the time Washington was released in 1979,
and they started to sell drugs.
The original Crips leadership had disappeared, and Raymond Washington had lost control. Crips were going against each other, Piru and blood gangs had formed, and the chaos had escalated to uncontrollable extremes. Washington attempted to find his place amongst the chaos, reminding members that it was never supposed to be about violence or Crips going against Crips. But as new members came up in the gang, Washington's original ideas were lost, and the Crips became something else. On August 9, 1979, Washington was standing outside an apartment building in Los Angeles when a car pulled up and called him over. As he walked up to the car window, he was shot once in the abdomen. He was rushed to the hospital where he later died. He was 25 years old, leaving behind 3 daughters and 1 son. Although many say Washington knew his shooter, his death still remains unsolved. Washington's murder did not make headlines around the world, but those within South Central LA, Watts, and Compton heavily mourned his death, and still do to this day. The Crips gang today is bigger than ever, with recent estimates stating over 40,000 members worldwide. Because of this, many see Raymond Washington as a ringleader, the man to blame for creating a destructive organization that ruins neighborhoods. However, others see him as a young leader who aggressively fought to protect his neighborhood and recruited others to do the same, yet lacked the foresight to see what the gang would become. Whichever way you see it, Raymond Washington will always be a notable face in California's history.